The furious hunt for the senior leaker who trashed President Trump in an anonymous op-ed heated up Friday after reports Trump has a list of 12 suspects and still more denials from top officials who said they didn't do it. The effort came as Trump leveled a new attack on Bob Woodward's bombshell book, which reveals chaos in the White House and senior aides scurrying to thwart the president's worst impulses. Trump said the book isn't accurate because I don't talk the way I am quoted. Trump tweeted Friday that the Woodward book is a scam. The president continued, I don't talk the way I am quoted. If I did, I would not have been elected president. These quotes were made up. The author uses every trick in the book to demean and belittle. I wish the people could see the real facts, and our country is doing great, Kentucky Sen. Rand Paul has suggested lie detector tests for senior aides in just one of the aggressive options to try to identify the author from within his own administration who charged Trump with holding off-the-rails meetings filled with repetitive rants that produce half-baked, ill-informed and occasionally reckless decisions. Another tactic being floated is to force aides to sign sworn affidavits stating that they weren't behind the leaks. FBI Director Chris Wray is the latest top official to deny being behind the devastating op-ed after Vice President Mike Pence and a raft of cabinet secretaries and senior aides said they didn't do it. Top aides have already been forced to sign non-disclosure agreements, so it is unclear what additional weight an affidavit might carry. An outside advisor said the White House has winnowed down the list of suspects to just a dozen, The New York Times reported. President Donald Trump said Thursday that an anonymous op-ed slamming him in The New York Times was an act of treason, asserting something he has only written with a question mark to date. The title used by the Times op-ed page, a senior official in the Trump administration, could refer to hundreds of people. The Times should never have done that because really what they've done is virtually, it's treason. You could call it a lot of things, the president said in Billings, Montana. Trump was being interviewed by Fox News Channel co-host Pete Hegseth in one corner of the Rimrock Auto Arena with a live audience of more than 10,000 people. In his speech he blasted the anonymous gutless coward behind the essay, verbally hiccuping on the word anonymous and twice mangling the pronunciation. Nobody knows who the hell he is or she, he finally declared. Trump repeated a challenge he had already issued to the Times on Twitter, demanding the paper's nameless author's head on a platter. For the sake of our national security, the New York Times should publish his name at once. I think their reporters should go and investigate who it is. That would actually be a good scoop. That would be a good scoop, he said. At some point this whole thing is going to be exposed, Trump predicted, as he warned about unelected deep state operatives who have tried to take his government into their own hands in a soft coup. And it's really bad, and it's really dangerous, he said. And it's really sad for the media. Trump's stemwinder was met with unanimous cheers. No protesters raised their voices. During his pre-show interview with Fox, he speculated about who might have written the piece, focusing on people working at a fairly low level who may want to give the public a false picture of what's going on at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. I don't mind when they write a book and they make lies because it gets discredited, he said. We just discredited the last one. But he admitted that he can't discredit the Times turncoat because you don't know who they are. The culprit could be a non-Republican lurking in his administration, he suggested, or it may be a deep state person that's been there a long time. The president had suggested a half hour earlier that he would put muscle behind efforts to identify the official who broke ranks to claim in the Times that a resistance of aides is trying to subvert the president's worst instincts for the good of the country. DailyMail.com asked him on the tarmac in Billings how he planned to uncover the disloyal official's identity. We're going to try, he yelled, over the noise of an idling Air Force One. As Air Force One was on approach for landing, Trump flexed his Twitter muscle in the Times direction, while one of the paper's star photographers was sitting on the plane. Are the investigative journalists of the New York Times going to investigate themselves? Who is the anonymous letter writer? He wrote. Trump seemed content for most of the day while watching the drama of a Washington-wide malahant play out on television and Twitter, and appreciatively consuming reports of cabinet members denying any involvement in the journalistic bombshell. A White House official said in the afternoon that the president would probably go there in Montana, anticipating a stem-winder about the op-ed. But the official wouldn't predict Trump's willingness to field direct questions from the press about who was and wasn't under suspicion. Trump boarded Marine One on the South Lawn without approaching a waiting gaggle of reporters. At Joint Base Andrews, he strode methodically up the Air Force One stairway, never coming near a traveling press corps that shouted questions about how he would unmask his deep state Judas. And despite a nearly 4-hour flight to the upper planes, he didn't stray to the aft press cabin to talk. He was saving his rhetorical bullets for Fox News. Non-Fox reporters were treated to a non-stop Fox feed on TV screens, while the network was reporting on an ever-lengthening list of cabinet officials and other Trump A-listers who denied having anything to do with the Times essay. At one point Fox filled its screen with a grid of 32 faces including Vice President Mike Pence, Ambassador to Russia Jon Huntsman, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and Defense Secretary James Mattis. First Lady Melania Trump said in a statement to the writer of the op, "You are not protecting this country, you are sabotaging it with your cowardly actions." Another White House official said Thursday that West Wing aides couldn't wait for the president to leave town, knowing it would lower the building's blood pressure and give him a reboot in an atmosphere where he excels. Trump held his Montana rally in support of U.S. Senate candidate Matt Rosendale, who is challenging Democratic incumbent Jon Tester. He blames Tester for scuttling his White House physician's nomination to serve as Veterans Affairs Secretary. Dr. Ronnie Jackson, a respected Navy admiral, was forced to withdraw following Tester's accusations that he oversaw a toxic work environment, drank on the job and overprescribed medication. The president, who insisted none of it was true, pledged that Tester would ultimately have a big price to pay in Montana. Tester, he said Thursday, will never drain the swamp because he happens to live in the swamp. Jon Tester talks like he's from Montana, but he votes like he's Nancy Pelosi, he said, lumping the Democrat in with one of the nation's most liberal lawmakers. Trump needed the rally to publicly shake his Etch-a-Sketch following a week of revelations that hit his team like a series of kidney punches. First came excerpts from journalist Bob Woodward's forthcoming book Fear, which paints the president as an ill-prepared and crude leader whose lack of impulse control drove senior aides to protect him from himself. In one vignette, Woodward describes then-chief economic advisor Gary Cohn literally swiping a draft memo from the Resolute desk to derail Trump's goal of ending a crucial Korean trade agreement. Scuttling the long-standing deal would have introduced uncertainty into Washington's relationship with Seoul and could have jeopardized America's use of South Korean real estate for an ambitious missile detection program. Internal fallout from the Cohn affair inside the West Wing had barely softened from panic to mere shock when the New York Times twisted the knife. The publication of Wednesday's unsigned op-ed, which the Times claims was penned by a senior administration official, struck a variation on the same theme. Its central claim is that a winking, nudging cabal of aides considers its primary mission to save the republic from Trump's ham-fisted ways. Many of the senior officials in his own administration are working diligently from within to frustrate parts of his agenda and his worst inclinations, according to the still unidentified writer.